Hello, this is Andrew. Welcome to Collaborative Learning. Today's book is The Blitzkrieg Legend, the 1940 Campaign in the West, by Karl-Heinz Freiser. If you like my work, please give it a like, subscribe to this channel, check the playlists, and support me on Patreon and PayPal. The links to Patreon and PayPal are included in the description to this video. First, I'll describe the contents of the book, talk about what's interesting about it, then I'll move on to what you can get out of this book. Karl Freiser is a German military historian and a retired colonel of the German army. He was one of the principal researchers in the German Armed Forces Military History Research Office. The Blitzkrieg Legend, the 1940 Campaign in the West, is one of the most important works about the Battle of France. Freiser was also one of the principal historians for the 12,000-page, 13-volume series that formed the official German military history called Germany and the Second World War. The Blitzkrieg Legend provides the definitive explanation for Germany's startling success and equally surprising military collapse of France and Britain on the European continent in 1940. In little over a month, an outnumbered Germany defeated the Allies in battle, a task that had not been achieved in 4 years of brutal fighting during World War I. This book demonstrates that the German victory was not inevitable and that the French defeat was not preordained. He shows why, on the eve of the campaign, the British and French leaders had good cause to be confident, and why many German generals were understandably concerned that disaster was waiting for them. The key to victory or defeat was the execution of operational plans and the very different way the two sides reacted to the circumstances they were in. In particular, the tactics and mindset of the German forces are explored in exhaustive detail, and analytical conclusions are drawn from them. For instance, in the Battle of France, the Germans famously defeated the French and British by maneuvering massed armored divisions through the Ardennes to break through the Allied line at Sedan. They got into the rear areas and sowed panic and destroyed logistics and reserve forces that were not ready and deployed for combat. However, the stunning breakout of the Germans through the French lines at Sedan almost did not happen. It was not really part of the High Command's plan. In large part, it happened because Panzer commanders, Guderian and Rommel, took the initiative, in some cases disobeying orders, attacked and kept moving, until they were stopped by Hitler's orders in front of Dunkirk. It also happened because Allied air forces inexplicably ignored an opportunity to attack the German armored divisions transiting the Ardennes. Why were the Allies so fatally slow? They had the major organizational problems. French and British battlefield communications with the radio was very poor, while German battlefield communications and use of radios was excellent. Every German tank had a radio, and their command and control skills have been honed by repeated training exercises. So in this battle, superior German communications was key. Another vital advance was German mission-based tactics and decentralized leadership. German leadership was energetic and bold. The command culture encouraged initiative even down to relatively low ranks. Among the Allies, the generals were simply too old for the jobs they had. Much of their thinking was out of date and too similar to the First World War. They could not deal with the incredibly fast pace of German Panzer operations, which operated faster than the Allied decision cycles. German generals, Guderian and Rommel in particular, led their units from the front, so they were able to make decisions on the spot, led by example, and drive their units forward. This courageous style inspired their soldiers, while also allowing them to make rapid on-the-spot decisions. Allied generals did not expose themselves to such risks. The model was to be in the headquarters, well to the rear of the frontline units, like in the First World War. Critically, the Germans understood the need to use armored divisions, concentrated as assault forces, and massed at key points of the battlefield. The Allies were still using tanks as infantry support. The German approach to war was active. The Allied approach was much more passive. Another critical aspect was the use of well-coordinated and timely air support to support ground forces, particularly those that were on the move. Part of the reason Guderian's river crossing Sedan worked so well was that he had established an excellent working relationship with the commander of the air forces in the sector. The Air Force commander cooperated with Guderian and provided a rolling barrage, bombed French positions across the river to substitute for the artillery that the German lacked. This was critical for demoralizing the French forces and allowing Guderian's forces to get across. And finally, an important aspect of the Germans was their mission-based tactics and their infiltration tactics. These were important innovation that greatly improved the performance of their fighting troops, helped them inflict higher losses, capture more prisoners, and greatly lowered their own losses. It also helped them maneuver and advance much more rapidly than was traditionally possible. The doctrine also incorporated decentralized leadership, giving generals down to relatively low ranks a lot more initiative than in most other armies. Ultimately, the French soldiers were failed by their military leaders. The French generals were stuck in the past. In the 1930s, they failed to modernize their tactics, their air force, and their communication ability, which proved fatal in 1940. Individual French combat units and soldiers fought bravely, but their actions were not coordinated by the generals quickly enough in a way to stop the Germans. The decision cycle and communications delay was way too long compared to the fast communications and fast-acting Germans. Ultimately, the epic German success in the battle for France created the seeds for the downfall of the German Reich. This created the Blitzkrieg myth and the myth that the German army was invincible. As a consequence, Hitler and the German leaders developed great arrogance. In 1941, they tried to do a planned Blitzkrieg campaign, which was a disaster that eventually brought down their country. So the great irony is that the so-called Blitzkrieg that worked was an accident. There was no such thing as a Blitzkrieg military doctrine. Blitzkrieg was just an invented concept to describe an accidental phenomenon, but the actual planned and much larger invasion of Russia was in fact an attempt to replicate a similar level of success but at a larger scale. The planned Blitzkrieg failed. The Blitzkrieg Legend is an absolutely essential book to understanding land warfare in World War II. In particular, it is fundamental to understanding the German army and how they fought and behaved. This exhaustive, highly researched book from a lot of primary sources is the best entry point for the beginning student of World War II. My personal regret is not having found this book earlier in my journey, as it would have cleared up a lot of confusion I had about what Blitzkrieg was and what it wasn't. The education provided in the book equips the reader with the knowledge and the basic analytical skill to understand the German army's campaigns in North Africa and Russia to a much higher level. To a lesser but still significant extent, it helps to understand the battles of Northwest and Southern Europe. I highly recommend this book and I rate it 5 out of 5 stars. So that's what I think about the Blitzkrieg Legend, the 1940 campaign in the West. Please put your thoughts and ideas in the comment section. They always make a great conversation. I hope you find my review to be informative. Thanks for watching.